So welcome everyone. Welcome to our lecture series on the 21st of March 2023. Today with Tamas Birtalan, former student of mine, now an entrepreneur in Budapest. He's going to tell us about his business, which I think is quite exciting. I've been following your career over the last 10 years. You were my student at Webster University Regents College. I think it was around 10 years ago, 2012, 2013. And I remember you were always interested in entrepreneurship. And here you are. Now you're telling us, my current cohort of students in entrepreneurship, about perhaps your career and about your business. And then they're going to ask you a few questions. So over to you, Tamas. It's all yours. And I'm going to allow you to share some slides that I think you've prepared. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Make you a host.
Okay. So while the technology is working, also from my side, thank you very much for this opportunity to attend. First of all, I also listened to some of these invitation and guests who came along to the university. Some were very inspirational, some were a little bit more scary from their life path. But this is how it should be. It was very good. So I hope I can contribute with whatever I have accomplished till now. The really interesting thing about ATTA is that we are still at the startup stage. So you guys will see where we are, where we maybe are stuck, and you can see for yourself, for your startup or your future startup, that this is totally normal, and it has to look scary. Otherwise, it doesn't really count. As I said, I don't have a script, so please interrupt me, ask questions, don't wait till the end. Or if you want to go to a different topic, if it's operational, technical, management, or finance, we can always jump around, whatever is interesting for you guys. I will do a little bit of introduction about the business itself so you understand it, and then we can go to every rabbit hole you would like to go to. Let me try to share. Can you see this?
Yes, of course.
Okay, very good. So our project or our startup is called ATTA. This has a story why it is called like this, but I don't want to take all the time away from it. I just start a little bit where I'm coming from or how I joined this project. So my name is Tamas Birtalan. I was born in Budapest, Hungary, but I left and I was grown up in Vienna, Austria. Afterwards, I lived in 7 different countries. As a consultant, I moved around a lot, and also privately, I moved around a lot. All of them were in Europe, but in different countries in Europe. I liked them all. Everything gave me an experience by itself. My first job was at BMW in Munich, but after a year, I joined a consulting company from Berlin, and I stayed in management consulting for the next over 10 years. I had a gap year when I went to London to study at Webster University, London Regents, whatever the new name is. It was a very good gap year for me, hear the whole academia again and reorientate myself a little bit. I went back to consulting after my studies immediately, and I did 2 or 3 amazing projects. Most of them were in oil and gas, so has nothing to do with logistics or pallets. Some were in energy and maybe infrastructure. I wasn't really doing strategy consulting, as you might learn it in school mostly. Our consulting company was specialized in post-merger integration. So all our project happened as soon as the merger happened. We stepped in and we implemented or helped and supported the management to implement their project. So our projects were very long, some of them several years long. But this is good because you can get more engaged with the project itself. You know the people, you get to know the business much better. And you also see the results coming up after a couple of years or months working into that field. Later on in 2018, I also did an MBA at LBS. And while I was in at LBS, after more than 10 years consulting, meaning traveling a lot, never being at home, etc., I really wanted to find a way out of the consulting business. And I was looking for different angles. Should I join a multinational company? Should I work in not governmental but administrational roles, etc.? I was never really an entrepreneurial spirit myself. I never had lemonade juice as a kid, or I never opened up some or programmed an application on Facebook or whatever. I was always improving businesses and develop businesses further and not inventing a business. So from my point of view, this startup scene was always fascinating, but I knew that I'm not the creative one who is inventing now something new and something creative. So I also played around with the idea to do a search fund, which is mostly like buying a small business and then improving that business further on, bring it to a different country, expand the revenues with a new product or new service, etc., etc. But while playing around with this idea, I came across this idea of ATTA that I will present to you. Why this project attracted me is the product itself was invented already by an elder gentleman. He already had the idea how the technology, how to produce that product was there, but nothing else was prepared. So it really needed to come somebody in with a business know-how and skills and say like, okay, how can we set up a company around it? How can we set up a marketing around it? Where shall we do it, etc. So the whole business aspect was missing. We had a product idea and we had a technological skill set. And this had to be framed into a business. Previously, all my experience regarding pallets were mostly sitting on a pallet bench on the beach and drinking beer, or maybe seeing some rotten pallets next to the highway. But to be honest, I never really touched a pallet in my life before. So it was a brand new industry, a brand new experience. To this whole pallet thing, and now we are talking about wooden pallets first, is a very interesting product because there are 5 to 6 billion pallets worldwide, and everything we eat, drink, wear, whatever has to be transported in a pallet sooner or later somewhere along the supply chain. So it is a product that is not visible. We as a customer, we don't see it, but it's a necessary good and a necessary evil in order to keep up this global economic and global transportation going on. As soon as a product is produced, it doesn't matter if it's a Coca-Cola bottle or a shampoo, it will be put on a pallet and it will be sealed, and afterwards the pallet will be moved, not the Coca-Cola bottle or not the shampoo box. Therefore, it is everywhere and actually nowhere, because we are at the end, when the customer or the wholesaler receiving this Coca-Cola bottle, he only counts how many bottles of Coca-Cola there is on a pallet, not the pallet itself. And therefore, it's a little bit of an invincible product, which has also the advantage that it's working like a currency. You give me all the goods that I ordered on a pallet. You are not charging for that pallet, but then you can pick it up for, some exchange pallets from behind the factory. Or these pallets are pulled around, so it is like a rental, and it's also not owned. Or even if I buy it, I scrap it, I burn it, or I scrap it otherwise, but I'm not interested in the pallet. I'm interested on the good that I'm buying on this pallet. So this is a different business than most of the business that we are coming across with, because nobody really wants to own it. Nobody really wants to have it, but you have to have it in a way. So just to give you a little bit of an overview what it is or why it is relevant. The pallet so the wooden pallet is dominating the market, with 90% of all the pallets worldwide are produced by wood. It has to have the same standard and structure and durability like our European EPAL version. So it can be exchanged, it can be trusted, etc. But then it has to run over all these industrial processes. So the conveyor belts, the rollers, there are palletizing machines, there are strappers or foiling machines, etc. So if you look at National Geographic, how it's made, it's always like these running through kilometers and kilometers of traction belts, and then products are put on it, foiled, robots are taking it, picking it up, etc., etc. So the pallet has to survive and be handled on this. But as soon as then the product is packaged and it goes to the outboard logistics, then the whole struggle starts. Because then it goes to a warehouse, it goes to a truck, it goes to a container, it has to be lifted, it has to be put. We are using different lifting equipment, etc., etc. And at the end, it ends up in a warehouse or in a storage in a shop until the goods are sold. So there are different steps along the value chain where this pallet has to go through, and the pallet has to do everything that is necessary in these different steps to go forward. Now there are, except the wooden pallets, there are also some kind of plastic pallets, but they never really had a big breakthrough. Nowadays, we are against everything which is plastic, so it has a very negative connotation. We don't really like it. But then there is the third segment, which are the corrugated paper or corrugated board pallets, which are produced out of waste paper. So it's more eco-friendly and sounds much better, saying like, we are not chopping a tree, we are not using plastic, we are using all the paper waste that we are generating anyway from packaging or paper or whatever. We are recycling them, and we are doing a pallet that can be used very, very easily. But these pallets which are on the market, and there are millions out of them on the market, are very weak, very fragile. They can be used only once. You can't really use it on an open rack warehouse. You cannot use a strapping on it because they don't have the durability. It will crack immediately, etc. So you have a lot of compromises that you have to do along these value chains that I mentioned in order to use it. IKEA, as a global innovative company, did this change. So they moved away completely 100% from wooden pallets to this type that you see here on the picture, and they use 15 million pallets per year. They also calculated how much they saved in storage, in transportation, in cost, etc., etc. But IKEA could accomplish this because he changed his complete value chain for this particular product. So the pallet was the motivating factor. He changed everything else to do it. What we developed is a pallet that fulfills actually all the needed requirements as a wooden pallet, but it's made out of paper. So it's lighter, it's cleaner, it's hygienic, there are no bugs or worms or etc. But it looks the same, it has the same size. It is not as strong as a wooden pallet, but comes to the strongness that are most commonly needed for FMCG, pharma, and clothes companies. We developed that product, but then because it's made out of paper and it has to be folded and glued and it has to be very exact in every inch and millimeters, we had to come up with a production machine as well. And this is just to show you the technology that we developed. This is a fully automated production line. This is in Szombathely, as you can see, approximately 1 hour from Vienna, where you buy corrugated paper from any paper company out there, which are produced out of waste paper. You put it into the machine, you press that red button that you see there, and the machine is doing everything automatically. It folds, it glues, and it adds up all these elements. And at the end, every 45 seconds, a new pallet rolls out from the machine that is ready to use. So of course, it has also a huge sustainability aspect. As I said, the trees doesn't have to be chopped, CO2 decrease is there, but the main aspect of the whole sustainability thing is that when you look at the recycling cycle for an aluminum can or a glass bottle, or even the plastic bottles, it needs a lot of players to come along to recycle the product. In this case, it's really just 3. If we stay with the example of Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola is using our pallet, is bringing all his paper waste to the paper company who is shredding it and doing, again, recycled paper out of it, which we then buy and we do a pallet out of it. And as soon as this pallet is done, we give it to Coca-Cola. So there are only 3 entities in this recycled circle who are involved here, and there is nothing else needed. Therefore, the material is not getting lost and it can be recycled as often as possible. Generally speaking, paper can be recycled 29 times. So there is a lot of potential to use this cycle around. Where we are now, I joined this team in 2019, in 2021. We developed the product, we patented it because you need a patent in order to be protected. Plus you need a patent so you don't step on somebody's foot who has maybe something similar on the market as well. We engineered the machine and we built the first prototype that you just saw on the picture. We created a brand and the whole story and marketing around it, why it is what it is. And then we started to push our suppliers. It's different story, but suppliers, in our case, corrugated producers, they don't really care about every inch and millimeter. They're cut wherever they think it's necessary. For our product, every tenth of millimeter counts because we have so many folding corners and edges that has to match. So it was a challenge also so that together with our suppliers, we are developing here new methods and quality control. And as always, you have a vision, you need a team to build up who are supporting this vision as well and supporting each other. And then, of course, the whole funding and liquidity issue. This is a very CapEx intensive business. It's not programming an app on Facebook. So you have to know how much money you need at the beginning, plus also how much money you need every month to keep up your factory. I mean, we have operational costs around 30 to 50,000 euros every month. So this cycle you have to keep up, and you don't know when is actually the breakthrough, break even, etc., etc. On paper, it all sounds good, but in reality, it's much, much harder to predict. Back to market and customer, this is the most interesting topic, and I have a few slides later on how market can trick you with, even if you have a lot of ideas and forecasts, etc. The product is currently tested and used by over 200 companies in Europe. Most of them are in the Netherlands, Germany, and Italy, but sometimes it's up in Norway or down in Greece, or even a pharmaceutical company in Cyprus is interested in the product, etc. But being an interested customer doesn't mean that you are a converted customer. And these two segments takes in some of the products only a few days or weeks. In a very complex logistical product, it can take a year or longer, because you don't quit your current supplier just because you found one alternative. You have to let the contracts roll out, then you test a new contractor, etc. So our sales cycle is really long. And of course, nobody knew that in the beginning. And therefore, this whole project, as I said, or business, is still in this running up phase of developing the core customer base. We also reached out to growth and business development, because we don't want to be the only producer in Hungary. This machine was built so we can replicate this machine and place it around the world in different spots. So then we are producing pallets locally, and we don't need to ship pallets unnecessary by truck. So we open up the second factory in Italy in summer in Torino. So then we have 2 bases, and then later on we want to come as close as possible to the customer as needed. And of course, because it's a startup and we are entrepreneurs and we are all learning and doing, we actually never know if we survive the next 3 to 5 years. So it can be a great idea. It can be a great idea today, but will we survive the next days or not? This is always a big question. Any ideas, comments, or questions so far?
Yeah, we have one question here. Perhaps you put it to me and then pass it on. Yeah.
I would like to know, because he said that he knew a guy who already had the technology to produce these pallets. I'd like to know how he met him.
So Thomas, the question here, first question here is, how did you meet the gentleman who had the idea? How did you come across him?
I was introduced to the gentleman by a friend. I had a list of different opportunities that I heard in my social circle, in my friend circle. There were some crazy ideas. There were some business takeover ideas. You make actually a long list what you see and hear. I didn't do a proper search fund listing where you are scanning the internet for potential business to take over. It was the first round, like listening up what's on the market. And then I was, while discussing with different lawyers, investment bankers, friends, etc., raising out the idea, I want to do something. What do you hear? What do you know? Then they said, like, oh, there is an idea, like it's it's on the table, but nobody really picked up it. Do you want to meet the guy? Do you want to have a discussion? And we had actually a discussion for over 8 months or something until we really said, both of us, we really said, okay, let's start.
Excellent. Yeah. Perhaps you continue with your presentation and then we ask you, I have a few questions for you, but why don't you carry on? If you have a few more slides, you said, yeah, I think you want to show us a few things.
Yeah, because it's also interesting. So we always make beautiful business cases, how fast the market will react, how much sales we will do. Everything looks very rosy-dosy, but in reality, it's always a roller coaster. So I show you a real roller coaster that we lived through, and we don't know how it will continue going on. So the top graph, the green graph, is lumber price quoted on the NASDAQ. As our biggest competitor is not all the paper companies which are out, all the paper pallets out there, our big competitor is the wooden pallet. So we have to understand how the price of the wooden pallet is developing. So if you look at the graph, and I could go further backwards as well, lumber price didn't change the last 20 years. They had a little up and downs, but it was very, very constant. It's not like an oil market or the Brent oil price. But then during COVID, as you know, due to the US, lumber price increased dramatically and everybody panicked. This is also, unfortunately, this is German, but it doesn't matter. You see on the bottom part that the pallet price as well as the hard wood that you need for pallets increased dramatically, doubled or tripled in a couple of months. Then it came down, and then Ukraine crisis came, which was even more effective for the European wooden pallet market, because the wood that are used for pallets are mostly coming from Russia and Ukraine. And of course, both were sanctioned and both had limitations. And then the price shot up immediately as well. So during these 2 years or these 2 cycles, we as a new alternative pallet provider, we received tons of interest. All the big companies came there. There was no FMCG company who did not approach us, because they wanted to make sure themselves that they have an alternative, a tested alternative. So we send them technical documents, we send them samples, we discuss it over internet, etc., etc. But then as soon as they make a decision that, yes, this makes sense, the prices drops again. And then their motivation for changing from their well-used, well-preserved solution, even if it has difficulties, the motivation was gone. So if I go to the next page, you see that, for instance, the European EPAL pallet, which is the only certified structure or design that is accepted everywhere, as you could see, it was around €8 back then. it went up to 25 euros on the market, but not only it went up to 25 euros, there was not enough on the market because there was not enough wood on the market. And since then, businesses scaled back. There are less cars and FMCGs produced, etc. So also all the pallets that are on the market, there's an oversupply of pallets on the market. So what's happening with oversupply? Of course, prices drops dramatically. This is not even in simulation with the lumber price, because there are now too many pallets on the market. The wood pallet producers needs to get them out from their warehouse, so they are dumping the price. And as you can see, it drops dramatically and the trend continues, and we actually don't know where it will end. The same is for a single use. So this is a non-certified pallet. Everybody can assemble something like this. As you can see, it drops from 11 euros to 6 euros. Why this is relevant is because in our case, we kept our price very stable. So when we came out on the market, we had a price which was around 12, 13 euros. And over the whole year, it doesn't matter of COVID and Ukraine crisis and lumber price, etc. We kept that price very stable because our expectation was that these big companies want to have a product which has a price stability. And if we can offer them a price stability, which they can count with for the next X years, then they will be even more motivated to try it out and go for it.
Thank you so much, Thomas. That was very interesting to hear about your business and also about your very candid story that it is scary, you know, the volatility, not just of the market, but the volatility of your own cash flows, I guess. Perhaps, let me just ask around here some questions. Yeah, Kai has a question.
I wanted to ask how much it cost him, how much it cost the wood companies to produce the pallets, and what's the cost of him to produce when it's not there from wood?
So a cost comparison between a wooden pallet and your pallet, which is made of paper or paper residue, right?
Yeah.
You can talk a little bit about pricing and then perhaps around that topic.
Yeah, so we are not really sure how much the price of the wooden pallet is exactly. Everybody keeps it very secrecy. We have calculated it with lumber experts, actually the University of Sopron, which is a university for forestry, etc. And it's very easy to calculate because you know how much wood it goes into a pallet in square meters, and you take the NASDAQ quotation of lumber. Okay. But as we are close to Eastern Europe, not everybody is buying wood on the market. You are receiving wood by different channels, and these different channels have different prices, lower prices than quoted. And very often these unregistered or interesting wood is immediately transferred to a pallet because then it's harder to trace their origin back. So there is a dumping of wood coming in from Eastern Europe, which is dominating the market.
And you, perhaps a little bit of pricing. I know probably you don't want to tell us exactly how much your production cost is, but is it significantly cheaper what you're doing? Is it a similar price? Is it so your price policy, a little bit into your price policy?
Yeah.
Are you disrupting by price? Are you disrupting by ESG, or is it a combination, or is it something else?
Yes. So when back in the days, we were not cheaper because our main cost is corrugated paper. Is around 60% of all our cost is the corrugated paper, which we have to buy on the market from different companies. The good thing is that you can buy it everywhere. So every big industrial city has one or two paper mills, paper companies around. So at least supply side, there's no issue. But then we have to transfer it to our production, and then we have an operational cost. That's the reason why we developed an automated production line, so we keep operation costs as minimum and as small as possible, because it's not human labor intensive. The machine is doing everything, but then you have to buy that machine or build that machine, which has a high capex item. So as we know, with a high capex issue, if you have high volumes and you maximize out the production, then the operation cost per pallet is very small. If you are running in one shift only, so you produce smaller, lower volumes, then of course your OPEX is very high, which nobody will pay for it. So at the beginning, you have to refinance that operation cost as well until you are raising the volume in your production to the level that you are aiming for.
Go ahead.
Yeah. When the pallet price increased to 18, 20 euros, we kept our price, and there was a big gap of cost advantage on our side as well. But this is now nearly flipping, not completely, but it does flip, because when there is a dumping on the market and you get a pallet for 6 euros, nobody is thinking about buying an eco-friendly pallet for 10 euros.
Let me just ask around. Other questions? Yeah, we have one question here. Kate, perhaps, and then the gentleman. Kate, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Thomas. I just wanted to ask what is the current high risk still you're facing with the project? Obviously, there is a big competition. The moment I've Googled up for paper pallets, I've seen many companies and many offers, so obviously there is plenty of risks still on the competition side, but perhaps you can tell me what other risks actually you're facing.
Did you hear this, Thomas?
I heard that.
Okay, what are the risks to your business at the moment? How do you identify it, and how do you perhaps quantify it? And Kate gave the example of being able to just go on the internet and see the prices for pallets as you outlined yourself. So where do you see the risk, perhaps short-term, medium-term, and long-term?
Very good. So definitely currently, as the prices dropped, our biggest challenge is to reinvent, first of all, to sustain survival. So there is always a liquidity issue and saying, how long can we survive what we are doing? But then we are not sitting and just waiting until the good times are coming up again. We have to constantly reinvent ourselves. So we have to find a way how to make that product cheaper, but not losing too much in the durability and stability of it. And the second aspect is, of course, not trying to compete on the cost side, but highlight items where we are contributing with a value to the customer, which might be more valuable for him than just 1 or 2 euros on the cost side. And this can be done, as there are a lot of other problems with the wooden pallets, which are not only cost. It can hygienical issues, recollection issues. We just got a call today that their automatic warehouse breaks down because the wooden pallets are not exactly the same size always. And these robots have laser measurements and they want to be on nanomillimeter exact, which cannot be done with a wood because it's a living organism. It does expand and contract a little bit, while our pallet is for the millimeter exact the same size. So as soon as we are getting more technological advanced in warehouse, logistics, transportation, our solution has more value. If we are going to the hygienical issues in pharmaceutical companies, in food and beverage, etc., where you don't want to use a contaminated pallet, or don't want to use a pallet which has wood pieces are coming out, corrosion is on, some bugs or worms can be inside, etc. All these are gone. Then you take a clean product, and a corrugated board is already steamed, so everything is dead. There is like nothing particular inside, and this is a way forward. And there are also some other aspects where we are actually highlighting the value itself and not the cost. for instance, CO2 credits using wood versus paper, which is contributing less of a CO2, which is an issue for big companies as well.
Perhaps a few questions. We had a question here. Yes.
Like I will start saying that I like your idea. So you take this product and you made it better, no? Not like you use paper, you made it sustainable. So I would like to know, how did you like come up with this idea? Why did you choose this product? Since normally when we think about startups, we think about app or maybe service. So I really like that you take like this physical product and you made it better. So how did you decide to work on it and why?
Okay.
Did you get this? Did you hear it? Yeah, good.
It's a very good question. So my partner was working in the packaging industry already. They packaged small items to heavy equipment formerly in wooden boxes or wooden crates in order to prepare them for export to overseas. But then later on, they started to use multiple materials. So they started to introduce corrugated paper or corrugated boards as well as for the packaging. So I'm talking about the entire package of a generator that has to be sent to the US. So instead of wood, they use corrugated materials, but they stabilized this machine as well in that packaging, and it was sent to the US, and the customer loved it. So the customer came back and says, like, if you work with this material, corrugated paper, so well, why you are using a wooden pallet under it? Why you don't do for us a corrugated pallet as well? Because we don't need or want to have a wooden pallet, we just need to have the functionality of a wooden pallet. So the idea, as you spotted, didn't come up from us automatically, but the customer came back to us and asked if we would do something like this. And there are customers who can only use a paper pallet because of whatever reason, because it's hygienic or they are exporting it or whatever. So there is already a market, for a big market, like $1 billion market per year for paper pallet. What we want to do is converting all the others who never thought about it and never tried it to move them to this paper pallet as well. But the idea came from the market, it came from customers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question.
Yeah, another question here.
Yeah, I would like to know if one paper pallet has the same weight capability of one wood pallet also.
Weight-wise?
No, I mean not capabilities. I mean how much kilograms can I hold?
Okay. So our current model is 80% lighter. So a wooden pallet is 25 kilograms on weight. Ours is only 5 kilograms. So you save a lot on transportation and moving, etc. But on the durability of on the weight carrying, so how much weight can the pallet carry, there is a wide range. There are single pallets which are calibrated for 500 kilograms to 700. And then the European EPAL, the certified pallet, has a weight carrying ability of 1.5 ton. So it is very strong. We could do a pallet which can carry the same weight, this 1.5 ton, but then we would use a lot of paper, a lot of raw materials, and we would make the product very expensive or a bit expensive. So we went back to the market and says, what is the common weight that you are mostly shipping and moving? And then big transportation companies always came back with this figure of 600 to 700 kilograms on a pallet. This is very easy calculated because you have on the European roads, you can only transport 24 tons in a truck. In a truck, you fit 33 pallets. So the 24 tons you divide by 24. I'm not a math genius, but this is around 600, 700 kilograms per pallet. So the weight limitation is not done by the product itself, but by our transportation allowance on the road. So therefore, we calibrated the pallet on 800 kilogram. And this is not 800 kilogram on the ground when all the legs are flat on the ground, but this is when it's on the open rack. An open rack in a warehouse is you have two steel beams and the pallet is put on the middle of the two steel beams. This means you don't have in the middle a supporting a barrier. So the pallet has to hold the entire weight on these two edges on the side. This makes it more challenging than placing it on the ground and putting whatever tons on it.
Thank you.
Excellent. I think Kate has another question at the back.
Do you have to use many chemicals or different synthetic materials to mix with the paper? Obviously, you need to make sure it's waterproof and a fireproof. My question is just like, can you tell me if you really need a lot of synthetics or chemicals materials involved?
Okay, absolutely none. Otherwise, we would be not sustainable, and the paper company would not take back our old pallets to shred it and make waste paper again. So we can really.
How do you prevent from dump water and fire?
Yes. So against water, we have a surface coating on the top. This is also a green product that is getting sprayed by the paper company itself. So they also know what's going on the product itself on the outer side of the layer. This is green and fully sustainable. And also with the glue, we selected one which has like corn and whatever inside. So it's a product that is water-based, and with the recycling circle, it can be washed out easily. We cannot use anything which is contains plastic or synthetic material, etc. Like Tetra Pak is, for instance, using their layers of material. Otherwise, we would not be sustainable and we would not be green.
Thank you. Perhaps if I may a few questions more on the financial side. In terms of funding the business, both the working capital, I think you mentioned a little bit of, like that's one of the issues that you have. The other one, the long-term funding, capital versus debt. Can you perhaps talk a little bit about that, and perhaps like stuff such as the WACC and so on? How important is that? Something that you learned from me, perhaps at university, web stuff. And how useful was it, what you learned, perhaps? But first, about how you're funding the business and so on. Short-term, working capital, and long-term funding.
Okay, very good question. So this sounds maybe a little bit unusual, but we are bootstrapped. So everything is founded by ourselves only. We have no external investor or no external funding at all. This is a great opportunity because we stayed flexible. We reached out to several investors. We had also discussions with investor groups, more in the private investors or VC area. We received also a lot of feedbacks and interest, but then we haven't really made the step to get an external fund investor in yet. At the next stage, when we are growing and we want to establish further factories in Europe, then we would have to reach out to these investors or new investors and scale the business. We would not be able to scale the business by ourselves or by our cash flow alone. Regarding the net working capital, we do sell pallets currently as well, so that keeps us a little bit above or below the line, depending how you see it. But we have some income that is generated, but we of course burning cash currently as well. We have applied for a bank loan, so we have received a bank loan here in Hungary. This was also a new business supporting a program that we could apply for, because it's a new business, but it's green, it's sustainable, it's high tech, it gives employment. We are in a rural area which needs to be developed, so we actually ticked a lot of things on the bank's checklist in order to be eligible for it. So we are self-funded with a bank loan.
Wow, that's amazing. It's very interesting. So tell me your location in Hungary. Why are you based in Hungary? I know, of course, the place. As you know, I've traveled many times, and I'm from a neighboring country, and it was part of Austria, by the way. Somebody I know is Sopron. I know the Birtalan and Budapest. You're based in Budapest, but the factory is in Szombathely. Is that what you're saying?
So I was living in Vienna most of my time. During COVID, I moved to Budapest. My business partner was in Budapest at that time, so it was much easier here to discuss and work together on a daily basis, work out how the whole things would work, etc. But then when we started to develop the machine, the selected engineering partner that we found was in Szombathely. Szombathely has a lot of it's a very good region for machine development and all these technical skills. There are a lot of technical skills. It also has a technical university there, and that's the main reason we moved there. We found a warehouse or an operational warehouse very close to our engineering partner, and the reason why we selected that has two reasons. Number one, we are so close to our engineering partners that he can literally walk over if we have a shutdown or we have a technical difficulty. So it's like we are lying on the intensive care in a hospital. So the reaction time is very short. But the second idea is Szombathely is just like 5 kilometers from the Austrian border. As we knew that our main customers will be Austria, Germany, and Western Europe, we wanted to save transportation distance. Opening it up on the other side of Hungary, even if Hungary is a tiny country, these 500 kilometers or 700 kilometers that you have to move the truck additionally raises the transportation cost, and that's a lose cost on both sides. So I have to pay the transportation, but the customer has to pay it as well. So nobody has a gain out of it. Therefore, in order to shorten the distance, shorten the cost, we move as close as possible to the border.
And I guess being based in Hungary, you have a cost advantage because the cost is below the cost of producing the same stuff over the border in Austria, correct?
Labor-wise, and engineering
wise. Yes. So there is an advantage. These 5 kilometers of being either side of the border, I guess, gets you an advantage. But still being close. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a cost advantage. Plus, my business partner he speaks a little bit German, but not very good. So it was much easier to discuss with the engineering partner in Hungarian what we want to do. So the language is a big factor. And in the meantime, he moved to Vienna, and I also spend more time in Vienna, and then it's even closer. So from Vienna, it's closer to go to Szombathely than from Budapest. So this is the fourth reason that it's there.
Very interesting. I think Kate has got another question. The third one, then you have please go ahead. Yeah.
So which marketing channels do you use to start?
Marketing channels. I think you're talking about distribution. Yeah. What's your distribution?
Yes.
You want to talk about distribution?
Excellent question. So we kept it quiet about our product until we didn't have the machine. We tested our product with a few selected customers, for instance, the big paper company that we are buying paper from. But until we did not have the production capabilities, we didn't want it to go out of the market. So for a year, we kept it quiet. When we finished the machine, we went to an expo in Germany, which is called Fachpack in Nuremberg. This is every 2 years, and it's a very big European packaging expo. We went there, we bought a small booth, we placed our product, as you could imagine, from a mom and pop shop. And then we were standing there like very naively and thought like, whoever is passing by, we will answer some questions. We have no idea. And it's our first time at the expo, never been here. We had some flyers and we had like business cards and whatever, but it was like really not childish, but like an amateur, first timer. But that was the time when, first of all, in Germany, the Green Party won. So everybody was scared that sustainability will be an issue. And second of all, lumber prices increased dramatically and there was a shortage of pallets. So while we are standing at this in our small booth, we were literally run over by interest. Big packaging companies, big FMCG companies, and all these big brand names which are listed on the stock market came and asked, like, what is it? I never heard of you guys. This is amazing what you are doing. You are, etc., etc. So our first tranche of potential customers were contacts that we collected at the Fachpack, and then after the Fachpack with all the video promotion, emailing, newsletters that we worked with them. Second of all, I had on my LinkedIn maybe 400, 500 people from my previous career, oil and gas engineers and managers, etc. And we really started to push LinkedIn into this new field of logistics, packaging, etc. And in the meantime, I think I have 5,000 connections. Out of them are still 400 oil and gas. The rest is all in this new field. So whenever we have a new product or we have a new news announcement, we use LinkedIn as a channel to communicate it to this target audience.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
The first option was very interesting.
Interesting.
That was the best one.
Thank you so much. Perhaps the last question, if I may, about the future. What are your plans? Valuation, I think at this point in time is very difficult. As you said, you're still in the startup phase and so on. It will take perhaps a few more years and so on. But what are your plans? Where do you want to go from here in terms of planning? You said you have some ideas about, I think, Torino, you want to build a factory and so on, but more in terms of business-wise, where do you want to go?
Yes, excellent.
What kind of exit? And is an exit already on the cards, or are you just interested in building it?
So excellent question. Our plan is, so we opened Torino in summer. That's already fixed. We partnered with an Italian group, which are pallet traders in Italy. So they know the business, they know the customers very well. What they needed is the technology and this new product. And we will copy paste this idea to other countries, especially in countries where we have language difficulties or in countries where we don't want to go to. Strange. Out of the thing idea, if we would move to Tunisia, we would not move to Tunisia alone. So we would look for a business partner, a franchise partner that we partner with, and then open up together in a joint venture agreement a factory in Tunisia. In some of the countries like Germany or Austria, where we feel comfortable, we would go alone with an investor, with an external equity investor, and then open up factories there as well. Our big step would be how we would enter the US market, because that's the biggest and the most consolidated pallet market in the world. And they don't have Apple or exchange pallets. They are mostly using single pallets. So the idea of our product fits for the US market even better. But first, we want to have established production units in Europe, a proven business case, and then make the jump to the US. There is no exit plan. There's no exit plan yet. Nobody came yet to us and offered us enough zeros at the end. The number doesn't count, it only does zeros. So therefore, we keep going until we really established a network of functioning production units and high volumes of pallets in order to show the sustainability big business model.
Very good, excellent. The last question, I can't hold it back, of course, is you were, of course, you're an alumnus of Regent's University, Webster. How much did you benefit from, what you learned here? And I think you were also at the nearby institution. We don't want to mention the name, London Business School, right? How much did it help you to study finance and entrepreneurship at these two institutions for your current activity?
I would not have made the step without the education. And this has one thing. It can be calculated back to one thing. When I was working as a consultant, I had always very, very similar projects year by year, and doing it by over 10, 12 years, you are losing the focus and you only see the same problem. You only see the same methods. You only see the same thing. So number one, these educations and have a gap year to step back, see everything from new, discuss about marketing and finance, which I never had to deal with. Plus also have time to just sit around, talk to people and think conceptually where my life is going, what I want, where are my interests, etc. Otherwise, when you are there in your project, it's like this hamster wheel. You are running, and you're doing the same stuff. And maybe there is a different track that you can go, but you don't see the track. You don't see the track where your life path could go further. So I use these education as a stepping stone, saying like, okay, I know what I achieved, what else is on the market, what else is possible, and use that as a trampoline to move further on. First of all, also from a professional level, but also more from a personal and social level, saying, okay, with this education, I'm closing off one part of a career and I'm just opening up a new one.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to hear that we were part of your trampoline and you jumped high already, and I hope you're going to jump even higher. It was a pleasure really listening to your presentation here about your business, obviously about your career. So we're very fortunate to have had you here to listen to you, and I wish you all the best, and perhaps a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We stay in touch, of course. Next time I'm in either Vienna or somebody, I hope we meet and we can discuss it even further.
Very good. And also all the best for the students. Good luck. Enjoy your time. If anybody wants to reach out or ask questions that he was not mentioning it now, you can find me on LinkedIn or on our page at attapalet.com. And I'm very happy to reach out and discuss maybe your idea or discuss ATTA or something else.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's exactly the spirit we need. We're going to find you. I'm going to pass on your details on LinkedIn, and hopefully they will going to reach out. Thank you for your time.
Perfect. Very good.
All the best. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.